understand on how we'll be able to write the summary, the conclusion, and recommendation research. No? So, conclusion recommendation, it must be written to relate directly to the aims of the projects or the research as stated in the introduction. No? So it indicates the extent to which the aims had been achieved and to summarize the key findings, outcomes, or information in your research. So it acknowledge also the limitations and make recommendation for the future work. But if it is applicable, no, the interpretations given by the researcher of the significance of the findings of research project for the client business along with recommendation for action. So of course, what should be the first sentence of your conclusion? So, conclusion paragraphs begin by revisiting the main idea definitions. The first sentence reminds the reader of what this has all been about. So, this sentence revisit your thesis statement or research statement or the main topic. Okay? So, then the conclusion is some ways like your introduction. You restate that research and summarize your main points of evidence for the reader. So that the research statement is in bold. Notice that it is written in 2 to 3 sentences. Okay, so I think for us to give more details about the topic, let us all welcome our presenter.
So again, these topics includes first the summary, conclusions, and the last is the recommendation. So the first one is a summary that has been discussed already by Sir Jervis. And the second one is the conclusion. So what is the conclusion? So conclusion allows you to have the final say on the issues you have raised in your paper, to synthesize your thoughts, to demonstrate the importance of your ideas, and to propel your reader to a new view of the subject. It also your opportunity to make a good final impression and to end on a positive note. Conclusion also pushes beyond the boundaries of the prompt and allows you to consider broader issues, make new connections, and elaborate on the significance of your findings. It should also be formulated concisely, yet conveys necessary information. And also, it has inferences, deductions, abstractions, implications, interpretations, general statements, and or generalizations based upon the findings. So, how to conclude? First, restate the thesis. An effective conclusion brings the reader back to the main point, reminding the reader of the purpose of the essay. However, avoid repeating the thesis verbatim. Paraphrase your argument slightly while still preserving the primary point. The second is reiterate your supporting points. So aside from restating your thesis, you should also reiterate the points that you made to support it throughout the paper. But instead of simply repeating the paper's arguments, summarize the ideas. Next is make a connection between your opening and closing statements. It's often effective to return to the introductions themes, giving the reader a strong sense of conclusion. You can accomplish this by using similar concepts, returning to an original scenario, or by including the same imagery. Next is provide some insight. Your conclusion should leave the reader with a solution, an insight, or questions for further study or a call to action. For example, what are the implications of your argument? Or why should anyone care? You will want to answer these types of questions here and leave your audience with something to think about. So what should be the first sentence of your conclusion? So just like as what Dean has said earlier, so conclusion paragraphs begin by revisiting the main idea definition. So the first sentence reminds the reader of what this has all been about. The sentence revisits your thesis statement or main topic. The next 2 to 3 sentences tie together the main points you have used to support this thesis or central topic. The conclusion section sums up the key points of your discussion, the essential features of your design, or the significant outcomes of your investigation. As its functions is to round off the story of your project, it should be written to relate directly to the aims of the project as stated in the introduction. Next is indicate the extent to which the aims have been achieved. It summarized the key findings, outcomes, or information in your report, acknowledge limitations, and make recommendations for future work where applicable, and highlight the significance or usefulness of your work. Conclusions and recommendations. So the conclusions and recommendations may be combined or in long reports presented in separate sections. If there are no recommendations to be made as a result of the project, just call this section as conclusions. What is conclusion recommendation? So conclusion recommendation is the interpretations given by the researcher of the significance of the findings of a research project for the client's business, along with recommendations for action. So the third one recommendation will be reported by Ms. Katrina Viesca Domingo. That's all for the conclusions. Thank you.
Hello po, good morning. I'm going to present the third topic is which is the recommendation. Recommendation it is to aim and efforts to solve the problem in the study. It should ensure a continuous benefit. A suggestion or proposal as to the best course of action, especially one put forward by an authoritative body. Are the suggestion or advice on what is the best thing to do. How to recommend? First, consider the request thoughtfully. Before agreeing to write a letter of recommendation for someone or on research, make sure that you are comfortable speaking up on behalf of the individual in a positive way. If you don't think you can give a positive recommendation, you should decline or write the recommendation. The second one is to clarify the purpose. Before you start writing a recommendation, get a sense of the overall purpose of the letter. So you can be sure the letter you write is structured appropriately. For example, if the letter is for the job, find out the job title and ask to see the description. Ask the individual to share with you any instruction or other information he or she received about the letter. In case there are specific requirements that need to be met. Third, get the details. Ask for the details about how the letter should be submitted. You may need to provide a copy of the letter to the individual or may need to mail or email it directly to the institution. Verify if there is a questionnaire or form that you need to fill and send along with the letter, or if you should send any other supporting information. Fourth, verify relevant skills. Ask the individual if there are any special skills or situation that should be included in the recommendation. Ask questions to confirm the individual's competence in what they do and their credibility beyond what you know through your first-hand experience with the person. Fifth, covered key traits. Focus on the initiatives, integrity, dedication, and the drive that the individual has to succeed. Use descriptive language, being sure to provide example specific to the individual where possible. Avoid bug, compliments, and try to provide as many specific details as possible. Six, be sincere and thoughtful. Recommendation letter should always be sincere and honest. For example, do not exaggerate the person qualification or provide any information that you don't know to be true. Be honest about everything, from how long you have known the person and in what capacity um, to, in, to, to your impression of the individual skill. That's all po. Thank you.
Okay, again, for the summary and findings, there should be a brief statement about the main purpose of the study. So the population or respondents, the period of the study, the method of your research use, and of course, your research, no, and your research. Now, another thing that we need to consider is the findings should be textual generalizations that is a summary of the important data, no, consisting of text and numbers. Every statement of fact should consist of words, numbers, or statistical measure given. No? And for the conclusion, no, conclusions are inferences, deductions, abstraction, implications, interpretations, general statement, and or generalizations based upon the findings. Okay, so the conclusion should appropriately answer the specific question raised at the beginning of the investigation in order they are given under the statement of the problem. Okay? And conclusion should point out what they're factually learned from the inquiry. No? Conclusion should be formulated concisely. That is brief, in short, yet they convey all the necessary information resulting, no, from the research study. And some danger to avoid, no, in drawing up conclusion based on quantitative data, the bias, the incorrect generalization, and the incorrect deduction. Okay, the incorrect comparison, abuse of correlation data, limited information furnished by an N ratio, and of course, the misleading. No? When it comes to recommendation, it should have the aim, no, and effort to solve problems in the study. It should ensure a continuous benefit being accorded to the universe, no, mankind involved. And it should be a recommended, ano, di ba? Then another thing, of course, in the recommendations, no, we see to it that we could able to develop suggestions, no, for future works, no, as our presenter mentioned.